From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gornoski. So glad to be with you again for our second hour of today's broadcast. We're live across Central Florida, across the Sunshine State, where the problems we have, they're not that hard to solve. We have to roll up our sleeves and learn to solve them together as neighbors, not relying on groupthink and tribalism, political partisan games. The blame game has failed us utterly, and the more we continue to play with the blame game, the more we will continue to sink into trouble that none of us are going to like. And so it's up to us to be the adults, to stand up and say, you know what? I'm just going to say no to the false high of scapegoating people based on their race or their gender or their political affiliation or their income level, whether they're rich or poor, whatever their background is. You cannot marginalize people, no matter what. Nothing gives us any justification to marginalize people and then to use the power of the state to punish them, to tax them, to regulate their behaviors, to take away their personal freedom, to take away their agency, to take away their moral faculties to be able to make right and wrong choices as free, sovereign individuals made in the image of God. They cannot do that and expect to have an outcome that is civilized and decent and sustainable. So one of the headlines that, has been a big story was the story of President Trump. Yesterday, after I did my radio broadcast, right after we had President Trump made an announcement that he was going to bring in military support to provide security to bring the violence and burning down in D.C. And after he made the announcement in the Rose Garden, he walked in a very dramatic kind of stunt, or whatever you want to call it, where he walked out of the White House with a gaggle of people around him, including his daughter and his son-in-law and Attorney General Barr and press secretary and different folks. And they walked over to the St. John's Church, which had been set on fire the night before. It's a dramatic moment, and he held a Bible, and the reporter asked him, "Is that your Bible, Mr. President?" And he said, "It's a Bible." And I thought that was a kind of a funny little moment, but the overall optic of it, of course, has been challenged. All optics that Trump does, he can do anything. He's going to have a knee-jerk challenge from his rivals, and that's okay. But the optics of it was challenged even by Senator, Ben Sasse of the Republican Party. And I'm going to try to pull up the story here. It was in the National Review. Sasse slams clearing of protesters for Trump's church photo opportunity. This is in the National Review. Nebraska Republican Senator Ben Sasse issued a statement on Tuesday morning criticizing President Trump's visit to St. John's Church Monday night as a photo op that treats the Word of God as a political prop. That's a quote from him. "There is no right to riot, no right to destroy others' property, and no right to throw rocks at police," Sasse said, "but there is a constitutional right to protest, and I am against clearing out a peaceful protest for a photo op that treats the Word of God as a political prop. Every public servant in America should be lowering the temperature, and that means saying two basic truths over and over again. One, police injustice, like the evil murder of George Floyd, is repugnant and merits peaceful protest aimed at change. And two, riots are abhorrent acts of violence that hurt the innocent. Say both things loudly and repeatedly as Americans work to end the violence and injustice." And so, that rightfully, if I haven't seen the footage, at some point you check out, even if you're doing news, you just cannot chase every little scandal that happens, a million of them a day. Nor would anybody want to. It's a lot of negativity that the human mind is not supposed to be inundated in the artificial manner that it is, because of the window to the world that social media and television 24/7 provides us, in an artificial sense of heightened anxiety by its the mean world syndrome, we used to call it in media studies, wherein we have a distorted view of the world because media, of course, amplifies the negative, and it gives you a window into the world anywhere around the world. Any city is your city. And, of course, these riots are happening in many cities around the country, and protests, peaceful protests, too. And like always, we're supposed to pick a side on the dialectic. You're either you're either, focusing on the riot part, or you're focusing on the protest part. And you're either pro criminal justice reform and Black Lives Matter, or you're pro law and order and the rule of law. And these little fake little dialectical pigeonhole spots that we're supposed to be artificially put into doesn't do anything to actually have a real conversation. And so I've interviewed presidents of Black Lives Matter, and I'll have them on again. And if there's anybody that is connected to this anti-fascist organization called Antifa, and they want to have their voice heard, and they're not advocating for violence, then we can hear from them too. So we want to have a conversation with people. Jesus spoke to, he hung out with Roman soldiers that were involved with terrible things, and tax collectors, which were robbing his own people blind and colluding with a occupied power that was desecrating and humiliating his own people. And Jesus hung out with prostitutes, and he hung out with tax resistors and tax collectors and everybody in between. And so if we're going to imitate the master of history, then we can have a conversation with anybody, as long as they're going to have it in good faith and they're not going to advocate violence. The problem is that so much of the government solutions are always cloaked in nice words, but underneath it, there's a lot of mundane, brutal violence. Like, for example, Ben Sass, from what I understand, is someone that, has continued to advocate for an aggressive foreign policy overseas. So, it's kind of strange to me. I appreciate the sentiment. We're not going to, if he's trying to say, hey, Trump shouldn't use the word of God as a political prop, that's fine. Of course, Ben Sass uses his faith as one of the hallmarks of his, public voice, which is fine. But what are you advocating for that? Okay. What are you advocating with that as your narrative? Because the Prince of Peace, last time I checked, wouldn't be having us bomb countries overseas and sanction countries, which creates riots, by the way, Ben Sass. So I hope you reevaluate. Perhaps you're ready to rethink what the Prince of Peace would have us to do in a country like Yemen, in which we are on the side of brutal Saudi blockades of people's medical supplies and food and access to proper sanitation and nutrition. Innocent children, the same kind of kids that you're looking at and you're getting upset because there's tear gas that was put in their face, okay, based on reports. I haven't seen them. I'm sure I didn't. If we watch the video, maybe it shows it clearly, but if that's what happened, okay, I'll take the word for it. If you're upset about tear gas, that's true. That's good. You shouldn't be putting tear gas to do a photo op for Trump. That's vulgar. It's dumb. But how about also pay attention to children with a lot worse than tear gas in their eyes in Yemen and our participation over there, or the starvation that takes place that hurts Iranians whenever we sanction their country and prevent them from being able to trade with us, to punish their rulers because they don't play ball with our Saudi Arabia strategy over there for who gets the oil hegemony. So maybe take your faith into every walk of life, because I think a nation that mutates its moral soul by always apologizing and using their Christian faith publicly, but then using that platform wrapped in the Christian language, as many do, to justify the perpetuation of economic starvation with the form of sanctions and drone strikes overseas. What about those kids? You don't see those videos, do you? Because they're not on the front yard of the White House. Okay. And are they made in the image of God? The Prince of Peace, Jesus Christ, says yes, Ben Sass. A child starving in Iran because a sanctioned policy starves them because their government's brutal. So therefore, where does it say that? Where does it say that if you imitate Jesus, you can go in as a senator and vote for a sanction that will starve an innocent child because it's okay to sacrifice innocent kids if it makes their government change their policy, which they haven't, by the way, no matter the sanctions. They've gotten worse. They've gotten worse because of the sanctions. They've become emboldened with the sanctions. They've gotten more entrenched. And a lot of the internal opposition to the Iranian government has been quelled precisely because it's the devil we know effect, where it's like, well, hey, you're starving our kids here. We wanted to get rid of our government, but at least they're trying to get rid of these sanctions. At least they're the ones that we know. So, Ben Sass, if you're going to use your faith to lecture people about human life, let's apply it to every aspect. I hope to see you renounce your foreign policy interventionism immediately, and we'd love to have you on the program to do that. So how about it? Ben Sass, let's have you on. A Neighbor's Choice will continue. I'm David Gornoski.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It can be devastating. There is a law firm in Tampa Bay that will keep you informed throughout the entire process. That law firm is Catania & Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania & Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims do not even realize that they can claim compensation for their loss until they talk to Catania & Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com, award-winning over 28 years and family first. Catania & Catania, personal injury, auto accident, and motorcycle accident attorneys.
Monitoring spoken. And now, Easy Lift Movers is on the air, reminding all Americans to show support to the brave men and women of our U.S. military. Their bravery and tireless efforts should never go unnoticed. This salute is brought to you by Easy Lift Movers, serving the community with quality and pride. Call the pros today, 813-505-8474. That's 813-505-8474. Also, all troops and veterans will receive a 10% discount. That's Easy Lift Movers, proudly saluting our troops and veterans. They are professionals who care.
The one thing that we have learned from a pandemic is that if we are healthy, we are less likely to be susceptible to grave sickness. With that said, stem cell activation is a big part of keeping ourselves healthy. By activating your own stem cells, you experience energy, sleep, reduction in pain, and a support system that promotes faster healing from wounds. LifeWave B radio patches are an easy, cost, affordable way to activate stem cells. Clinical studies demonstrate that LifeWave patches reset the genes in the body to a younger and healthier state. By wearing the daily patch, your body will activate stem cells to benefit a healthier and productive life. Go to lifeway.com/B radio to see how you can elevate, activate, and regenerate your life with stem cell therapy. There is a special offer with B Radio. The address again is lifewave.com/B radio. The address again is lifewave.com/B radio. Live healthier and wiser with the LifeWave B radio patches at lifewave.com/B radio.
Thanks for listening to 1040 WHBO. We've seen unprecedented growth in listening over the last several months. Our ad partners are experiencing great success, and we thank you for supporting the many advertisers on this station. If you own a business or handle the marketing for a business, contact us. We'll get your message across the many media platforms we own. Call 813-250-3883. That's 813-250-3883. Or send us a note, web at radiogenesis.com. That's web at radiogenesis.com.
Just to continue on that story about the Trump move over the to the St. John's Church in D.C., walking there, dramatic moment. He holds up the Bible across from Lafayette Park, where there were protests the night before. And there's been a lot of pushback, and I wanted to read this quote from Marion Budd of the Episcopal, Bishop Marion Budd of, and he goes on to say that tonight President just used a Bible, and this is on Twitter, it looks like. Yeah, Twitter. Tonight, President just used a Bible in a church of my diocese as a backdrop for a message antithetical to the teachings of Jesus and everything that our church stands for. To do so, he sanctioned the use of tear gas by police officers in riot gear to clear the churchyard. I agree with that, but it's a half-truth if you're not going to tell the whole truth, Bishop. So I certainly hope that as an Episcopal bishop, you tell the truth about all the other aspects of the antithetical nature of the status quo of our government. Okay? Don't use a half-truth. The thing I hate the most is when people get so close to telling the truth. Yeah, it's antithetical to use tear gas against peaceful protesters to clear a church and then hold up a Bible as a political prop. Yes, it's antithetical to Jesus that way. Yes, I agree. Because Jesus says clearly, do not resist evil with violence. Where's the asterisk there to put tear gas in people's eyes to hold a Bible up as a political prop? And yet, if you're not going to tell the whole story, which is it's happening on both sides, you're still caught in that false dialectic of half-truths. I'm just not going to play that game. I know it's convenient. I know it makes people feel good. I know it makes people feel like, well, we got to side with something, right? I don't want to be out here in the open. When you see people polarizing masses of people around the country, it's really uncomfortable to be in the middle and try to be a peacemaker. And I'm not saying middle and some mushy, moderate gunk. We have too much of that. That's a problem too. I'm talking about being in the middle in a real skin in the game way, using your witness, using your voice, using your actions to be a peacemaker between two sides that worship human beings as their gods rather than renounce their pride, renounce their prerogative to use coercion to solve problems. So when we see this story of this bishop, what else is antithetical to the teachings of Jesus that's happening? If you're going to use your role as a bishop of a church to make a partisan shot, then that's antithetical to the imitation of Jesus as well. Jesus says God desires mercy, not sacrifice. When you put teardrops or a tear gas in people's eyes who are doing, if they're peaceful, and again, I'm going based on the media, and it's so hard to even trust that because you don't know what the media lies about everything, so it's so hard to know. But just assuming that story is what it's been reported as. That is wrong. It's against the imitation of Jesus. But so is bombing countries. So is starving children in Iran and Yemen. So is calling for the regime change of Syria, which Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton supported. So tell the whole story. There's no good side here. There's no good team here. There are instances with certain political groups are right on certain issues. And so we'll applaud that when they get something right. We're not going to be blanketing and saying they're wrong on everything because they're wrong on most things. No, when they get something right, we'll say it. But this notion that somehow we're going to cherry pick when it's time to talk about the failure of political leaders to hold up to the standards of the church or to hold up to the standards of imitating Jesus, then we need to tell the whole story about what government's doing and stop doing this half-truth nonsense. So that's what we see. We see a country that's reeling from crisis, but they're addicted to the same old status quo of government control because they've been catechized by government. What is catechized? That's what your teaching is. That's what raises up and constructs your worldview. Let's put it this way. If you made a law that says Walmart will have a monopoly on educating kids from kindergarten to high school, Walmart gets the full monopoly. And we're going to take people's money by force to fund that education center and give Walmart the money, and they're going to have the monopoly. And yes, you can opt out and have your own private school education, but Walmart, the corporation, still gets to have your money taken from you to fund their public education. So imagine that Walmart and all of its regional offices was the monopoly on education. If that happened, what would happen? Well, you'd have a country where you'd have a situation where Walmart would make sure that their values were represented. Or what if you said Dunkin' Donuts will have a monopoly on breakfast? You can't go to get breakfast from anywhere but Dunkin' Donuts by decree of law. Then you're going to have a country that grows up believing that the only kind of breakfast one can get is donuts and bagels and everything that Dunkin' Donuts offers. They won't even know about eggs or bacon or sausage or steak or whatever else people like for breakfast. So too is it the case that if you have a nation where the vast majority of us are raised from the moment we're young to the moment we're in college ages by institutions of government, then they're going to shape a worldview in which problems come over and over and over again, but their only solution is government. Their only solution is picking winners and losers in private sector using government. Their only solution is to finger point about race while the laws of bad government stay on the books. Their only solution is, hey, there's one candidate that bombed these countries, and here's this candidate that bombed those countries. Well, which one's the least evil? Who did this or do that? You know, these little tiny little microscopic nuances that we're presented with as the lesser of two evils, which is not doing the right thing until you reject the whole thing and repent of it and turn your mind away, turn your heart away from this system, then you won't understand how to get out of it. That's the choice we have to make. To reject it, to turn our minds, to renew our minds, if you will, on the things that are lovely and the things that our government is doing and the things that the community of the American people are doing and allowing the status quo to continue. Those things are not lovely. But there's a lot of loveliness out there. That's the thing I'm not going to lose sight of. There's a lot of beauty out there. But it's not going to come from our political system. It's going to be coming from people with skin in the game. It's going to be coming from folks who are looking to solve problems neighbor to neighbor using mercy. That means skin in the game. That means rolling up your sleeves like the Good Samaritan and getting into the aid of your neighbor. Not going to force, not blaming some whole race and making it all about this race is bad or that race is bad. That is the way of the old order of sacrifice and blame games. But we have a new situation on hand. And we have to be of one accord on this because time's running out to get it right.
Special report, protests across America. An 8 p.m. curfew is now in effect in New York City through Sunday in an effort to curb violence and looting. Governor Andrew Cuomo says Mayor Bill de Blasio must get the rioting under control.
I believe the mayor underestimates the scope of the problem. I think he underestimates the duration of the problem. And I don't think they've used enough police to address the situation.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott has turned down President Trump's push to send U.S. troops to his and other states.
So we will not be asking the United States military to come into the state of Texas because we know that Texans can take care of Texans.
And the state of Minnesota has filed a human rights complaint today against the Minneapolis Police Department in the death of George Floyd. I'm Ann Cates.
America's schools are closing, which can be especially tough on students who struggle with poverty, hunger, and trauma. But Communities in Schools can help. Our organization puts caring adults inside schools to help vulnerable students stay in school. Now, in the face of crisis, we're working beyond school walls, delivering meals to students, helping them access remote learning, doing whatever it takes to help them succeed. To learn more, visit communitiesInschools.org.
You looking for a positive? I've got it. Use your life insurance while you're living. MyTermLifeGuy.com. Look, with everything that we've been through, don't just think about your family. You got to think about you. Term life insurance. Get one that lets you use it while you're living. MyTermLifeGuy.com. It's that simple. MyTermLifeGuy.com. A $1 million policy for a healthy male non-smoker below $35 a month. MyTermLifeGuy.com. Sponsored by Gold Coast Insurance Group.
Look, it'd be easy for me to just settle into the status quo and say, oh, you just got to vote for this team or that team, or it's just not that easy. So while it would be easy if I wanted to be what the little social media kids call a grifter, it'd be a lot easy for me to just go along and pick a team and say, oh, I'm on the MAGA team and all this, or I'm on the social woke team, or I'm on the moderate neocon team, or I'm the nationalism team. No. Not on the Libertarian Party team. Sorry. Not interested. Not against, just not interested. I'm interested in just trying to find out the truth, right? Exercising our minds in a free space. And I'll have friends in all those teams. Isn't that the great thing? I'll have friends on each team because that's what we're supposed to do. A YouTube commenter just posted a quote from the Gospel of Luke, which is a great book, chapter 22, verse 25, speaking about Jesus. And he said unto them, the kings of the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and they that exercise authority upon them are called benefactors. And verse 26, but ye shall not be so. But he that is greatest among you, let him be as the younger, and he that is chief as he that doth serve. Now, again, I don't understand, you read these passages, and we have a country with, 70, 80% of us saying we're Christians? What does the word Christian mean? It means imitator of Jesus. So here's what Jesus says about what you do to socially organize your society. And he says, don't do like the Gentiles do. The kings of the world around Jesus' picture of the world that he's creating in his life, the kings of the world, they exercise lordship. You know what lordship is? It's the same word that Trump used, dominate. Remember, he said, you got to go dominate the streets. He's vainly grasping for the solution of the world. And I'm not scapegoating him. I know that guy gets 90% negative media. And so my knee-jerk reaction is if I see 99% of people piling on one direction, I'm not going to go and say he's my guy, but I'm just not going to go on the pile on. That's just maybe that's a defect of mine or whatever it is. I don't think so. I think it's the way we're supposed to think. Leave the 99, go after the one. But what I'm trying to do is balanced here. But I'm trying to be honest here. It's very clear to me that the Gentiles lord over people. They dominate the streets. And Jesus says, but that's not how you're going to do it. He that is the best, he that is the most dominant among you, let him be as like a child, like he's a younger guy, like he's lower on the pecking order. And he that is the chief of police or chief of whatever, let him be like someone who's a servant. Where's the asterisk there that says Ben Sass can go bomb countries? Where's the servant there? You're not serving an Iranian child who's starving from our sanctions. You're not serving, you're acting like the kings of the Gentiles that dominate over the people they're in charge of, or the people that they're not even in charge of when it comes to starving people overseas. This is what it means to imitate Jesus. Take his words seriously and apply them to your life. Don't use it as a Sunday thing that makes it a cool time to come hang out with your friends. That's great. You got to have community, but don't let the Jesus experience you get be as real as lions are at a Lions Club meeting, right? Because that's about as much Jesus as you get in many churches today. You heard of the Lions Club? If you're a child, a little kid, hey, you want to be a part of the Lions Club? What would the kids say? Say, oh, is that where the lions go? Is that where we get to see lions or something? Well, that's what the church is. If the church is the Jesus place, you go there and you get as much Jesus as a Lions Club presents real lions. You sing songs about a person, but you can't imitate him when you come out the door. This individual commented another verse. He's trying to help me with a Sunday sermon. It's not even Sunday. He gave me James 2:13. You trying to get me to preach? For he shall have judgment without mercy that hath showed no mercy, and mercy rejoiceth against judgment. Where's the asterisk there that says, well, yeah, that's fine for little things like someone calls me a meanie, or someone's rude to me and cuts me off in line at the buffet or something, and I let them have the last dinner roll. I mean, that's how we have privatized Jesus and put him in our pocket like some kind of little genie that pops out and gives us feel-good little fortune cookie sayings or something. No, this is something to do with how we're supposed to be living right now. So if we're not going to have it on Sunday, guess what? I'm going to bring it to the airwaves in the public domain. Not in a religious setting, but in a public, secular setting. Because if this kingdom is going to work, it's got to be something that can be applied to every issue of our lives and not truncated into, well, Jesus is for your little private little feelings and say your little prayer. No, Jesus said God desires mercy, not sacrifice. Jesus said, as we referenced in Luke chapter 22, the kings of the Gentiles exercise lordship. That's domination. That's coercion. That's might makes right. Now, if you see your neighbor is doing a drug, here's the question. Do you have the right to exercise domination or lordship over them? Jesus says in Luke 22:26, but ye shall not be so. Ye shall not lord over your neighbor and put them in a cage for a petty offense like the $20 issue of George Floyd being murdered for that, or the nonviolent offenses of people drinking milk or selling milk from a cow's udder. You don't put a human being in a cage. That is what the pagan cultures did in the Bible. It wasn't what Jesus says that we should do if we want to imitate him. And it's a real clear story for me. Forget about the different denominational divides that distract us, because there is issues there that are real, but the most important thing is, what did Jesus say? He said, if you're going to pick up your cross and follow me, that means do what I do. Don't say, oh, that was wonderful that you did that, but I'm going to go ahead and just use you for my ticket into a cool crowd or a social club. I'm going to use you as a ticket to an afterlife, but that's it. No. You have to be what he does. You have to be Jesus, literally. So when you become Jesus, all of a sudden, these things are not so convoluted. You don't have to scratch your head and say, well, if I do this algorithm, it looks like Team R is the lesser of two evils this year. Ooh, I did the calculations. Uh-oh, it's the Team L. No, you don't have to play that game. You just say no. It's liberating. It's free to not participate in bad behavior just because somebody else does it. Our grandmas taught us that. If you have a bad group of people, just because somebody else is doing something doesn't mean you have to do it too. Just because your peer pressure friends tell you you can do this bad behavior doesn't mean, even if there's 100 of them saying it's fine, that it's okay. And you have that taught in the back of your mind by your elders or your parents. And when you have that moment where 70 kids say, hey, do this drug, that's when the principal kicks in and you say, you know what? I'm going to have to get out of here. I don't want that. That's too bad. That's bad stuff. Or when the 70 people say, hey, take these shoes from the store because we broke the window. You didn't break it. Just come take a pair of shoes. Just participate in the degradation of somebody else's livelihood and just participate in taking things. For what? To take a shoe that's a symbol for a fake rat race about trying to be better than other people? It's all envy after envy after envy. What do the shoes represent? What do these things that people are stealing represent? They represent decadence. They represent trying to look like you're something, like you're rich or you're fancy or you're the cool person. It's all meaningless. And why haven't we taught this to our children? Why haven't we taught this and gotten our children out of government schools to the best of our ability and equipped them with the foundational principles of imitating the personhood revolution of Jesus Christ so that they don't end up trying to burn down the city? Why haven't we had this moment to repent of our worship of government power and all of its ideologies and all of its varieties and all of its tantalizing excuses? Just sacrifice our neighbor. That's what government tells us to do. Just a little bit. Okay, you can legalize the marijuana people, but not the heroin people. Where did Jesus say you can have mercy on everybody but the person doing heroin? Where does it say that? Adultery has done more to destroy societies than heroin ever did, and Jesus saved a woman that was accused of adultery. Now, how much more so can you save every single person? And we have to stop saying, well, if we legalize it, everybody's going to do it. Well, right there, you just revealed that your God is government. That if government doesn't use violence to stop something, that means you must do it because government didn't threaten you with the loss of your life if you do it. You can't have that kind of a God. That God will always fail you. It's failing you right before your eyes. Government's not going to get your country in a more equitable state. And your children would know that if you took the time to imitate the personhood of Jesus Christ every day and model them and just show them the passages. It's not that hard. Just read the passages. And I'm talking to a country where 70-something% of us say we're Christians. So, excuse me if you're the atheist in the audience, 70% of your neighbors believe in what I'm talking about. So I'm trying to ask them to follow through with what they say they believe. And by the way, Mr. Atheist, you're a lot more Christian than you realize too. Isn't it convenient that you have such a sensitivity to the concerns for the underdog? You didn't get that from anywhere. You got that from evolution, right? You just evolved to have a concern for the underdog and the impoverished and the downtrodden. You just magically got that from evolution. What a myth. What a fantasy. What a frivolous idea. There's a religious obsession. Well, I don't believe in anything. Well, step aside. You believe something. You believe in the myth. You have a big other that you subserve and subsume your worship and all of. You believe that there's such a thing as a black hole, even though there's no evidence for it. No evidence for it. But you have faith in the intelligence of people that you've been brought up to believe are the experts in a field, and they said there's a black hole. Therefore, you have faith and you have awe over their perceived intelligence over you. And so therefore you have a leap of faith where you say, well, I look at the data and I look at this and I'm going to make a leap of faith that, yeah, therefore black holes exist. I've never seen it. There is no real evidence for it, but you have a faith and you have a transcendent identity around perpetuating that faith in the unity of the ideas, in this case, scientism, that you hold sacred. So never tell me anything about you don't have a faith. You always have a faith. Human beings are designed to worship. Human beings are made as worship creatures. They imitate and they hold something in awe. That's our design. That's what makes us unique. So let's be mindful of that when we want to call ourselves Christian. Because if we're going to imitate Jesus, you can go look and see what that looks like. We'll continue in a moment.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It can be devastating. There is a law firm in Tampa Bay that will keep you informed throughout the entire process. That law firm is Catania & Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania & Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims do not even realize that they can claim compensation for their loss until they talk to Catania & Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com, award-winning over 28 years and family first. Catania & Catania, personal injury, auto accident, and motorcycle accident attorneys.
If you know anything about NFL or about NCAA basketball or football or NHL or whatever, entertainment television, make sure you make a deposit at betdsi.com.
Promo code Bubba100.
Again, make a deposit. They've been getting a lot of great response from the Bubba Army. Make your deposit using promo code Bubba100. It's simple. Go to betdsi.com.
Promo code Bubba100.
Sign up with the Bubba100 code and make that deposit and get your bonus, plus have some fun at the safest wagering site available. Fast, on-time paying their winnings out. Incredibly mobile friendly. And if you haven't already signed up, then go now. Make your deposit at betdsi.com.
Promo code Bubba100.
Bubba100 gets you a special bonus and gets you in the game. Again, www.betdsi.com. And at the promo code portion,
Bubba100.
Bubba100. Thank you.
Let's face it, these are stressful times. New routines, the constant bombardment of bad news, and trying to keep you and your family safe all the time. It's Frank for Center for Men's Health. During these stressful times, your mood is so critical, and nothing's more important to a guy's mood than testosterone. The single greatest issue for guys with low T is mood, and the single greatest change for men that get low T care is a greatly improved mood. Many are grumpy when they start, and most can't believe how much their mood improves once they get treated. And everything improves once your mood improves. Feel the difference C4MH.com can make in your life. I've been a patient of C4MH.com for a couple of years, and recently I've lost 20 pounds because now I have the energy to work out from home. And that'll put you in a good mood too. C4MH.com's express treatment plan is convenient, affordable, and above all, safe. And with locations all up and down West Florida, there's one near you right now. Find out more. Go to C4MH.com.
Ernesto says, not faith. The same principle that lights our sun creates a black hole. This is a wrong extrapolation. Well, Ernesto, appreciate you commenting there on YouTube, but I'm going to have to disagree with you on that. But I invite you to ask that question to our Chief Science Advisor, Dr. Yu, theoretical physicist, aerospace engineer, on Thursdays on our Science and You broadcast. We do that Thursdays each week where we can do Science and You, and you can learn about what actually binds galaxies together. Is it gravity? Is it the gravitational equation, or is it magnetism? You just ask Dr. Yu on Science and You on Thursday. Be glad to have that comment, that question, or call into the show and have that discussion, because that's a great point that we need to hear from. But nevertheless, when we talk about the word faith, faith doesn't mean belief in the absence of facts. It means trust. It means faithfulness. And no matter what facts you want to use with confirmation bias, no matter how much we think we can be objective arbiters of truth, we are always operating in a non-neutral space based on how we're raised, based on the culture in which we're raised, based on the economic status, the experiences that shape us, our experiences with institutions like religion and marriage and so forth. We always stand in a non-neutral space. We always come with presuppositions baked into our analysis of events. This is a proper scientific perspective, is to be skeptical of the epistemological foundations by which you believe to have claims of truth certainly down pat. And so it's when you have, as Thomas Kuhn talks about, faith. That faith is not a negative thing. It can be when it's used for the wrong places. When you are faithful in imitating bad role models, they will lead you astray. But this idea that we can operate without faith, without a leap of faith, even when we looked at all the facts, there's still that little leap of faith that must be had to make a stand on what we believe to be right. And so much of us today, as we reel from this disastrous lockdown political situation, when we operate in a situation in which the lockdown has resulted in 40-something or probably way more people unemployed, unlawfully using the lordship, there's that word again, that domination. Trump, because he's not good at playing the politically correct game. That's what's great about Trump. He always reveals the bludgeon of the state that everybody else tries to hide with their clean political rhetoric. And that's why I think it's a godsend that he's there instead of the other Clinton, Bush, mass bombing, mass sanctioning, mass incarcerating status quo. Most of that's still going on under Trump, but at least he uses the proper language that reveals the ugliness of the perpetual status quo of our government that has become a law unto itself. And it's a law unto itself because of human beings that allow it to get there. Our government is a reflection of who we have become by and large. Not everybody. I understand there's some certain people who keep the faith in imitating nonviolence and imitating self-emptying rather than self-aggrandizement. They imitate mercy, not sacrifice. But most of what we're doing is mercy via sacrifice. We will ban guns, right? That's what people say. We'll ban guns. I'm not going to say that much anymore because of what they're seeing on the nightly news. We will ban guns because we will sacrifice gun owners with force, initiating violence to take their guns away for certain guns. And that's how we'll deliver mercy. Mercy via sacrifice is how the gun control issue gets. And at the same time, I think there's the mirror opposite, which is this notion that if someone's stealing something from you, you have a right to kill them. Now, I understand it's a little tricky if someone's in your house because you don't know their intentions. Are they there to hurt your children? And at that point, you have a little bit of freedom there, I believe. There's room for a discussion there. But as it pertains to if you're just walking around and someone's perceived to be a thief and they're taken off, you don't have a right to shoot them if you are imitating the personhood revolution of Jesus Christ. I don't care what the Constitution says. Just because you have a legal right doesn't mean you have a moral right. Don't get those confused because, of course, you're not worshiping government, are you? We put our framework of what we hold highest as the centerpiece for how we analyze things. So just because your government says something's right, and just because you may have a legal right to do something doesn't mean you have a moral right to go along with that. And then at the same time, you have people that on the right say, hey, let's bring in the military. Let's have them surveil our records and let's try to hunt down Antifa. That's exactly what Antifa wants. These are attention mongers, and they want nothing more than to try to create a martyr's perch. They would love nothing more than to somebody to get mowed down like Tiananmen Square, and then the media sycophantically worships them right now. They'll worship them 10,000 more times if they perceive that becomes a martyr's perch if you go having a militarized response city by city to try to wipe out Antifa. And then those surveillance properties and freedom, or the surveillance rights that you give government to try to round up who's Antifa, rest assured they'll be used to hurt other people too. So fighting violence with violence, again, is rejecting the imitation of Jesus. So when you fight violence and say, hey, we're going to militarize the whole government, militarize city responses, what's that going to do? It's better to follow and imitate the master of history than go along with the status quo. If you can't change now, when will you? Look at what's going around you. We've lived in a comfort for a long time. Some of that comfort was built on real amazing innovation. And some of that comfort was a product of a false financial system that has created this artificial credit creation system, which has made us lazy and complacent as our culture's rotting with a steady diet of cotton candy as culture. And now the health bill is due. Now we're looking at the teeth and we're seeing what we've done of eating nasty cotton candy every day and saying that's markets. That's not markets. It's not freedom. It has nothing to do with free markets. Don't let the media lie to you, left or right. What it has to do with is worshiping power made in the image of human beings that want to lord over us. And we can't give this kind of society to our children. We owe it to them to do what's right, to reject that false song of coercion, whether it's the profane level on the streets or the so-called sacred level with our institutions of politics. Reject it all. Just say no. Love your neighbor as yourself. It's that simple. God desires mercy, not sacrifice. I'm David Gornoski. Godspeed.
Home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park, Tampa Bay's all